10:01. Okay, if everyone will take their seats, uh, please welcome to all the family, friends, faculty, and trainees to the UCSF Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences graduation 2022. So thank you so much for coming. Um, in the past, we had Coach Steve Kerr and Stephen Curry help celebrate us. I don't know why they're not here today. They have some sort of obligation on the East Coast. Anyways, okay, well, seriously now, today we celebrate the many achievements of our trainees. My name is Descartes Lee, and I am the Vice Chair for Education for the department. It is my pleasure and honor today to be part of this celebration. And there are also going to be many people participating virtually, but I'm especially happy that I'm here in person after 2 years of pandemic restrictions. Thank you for this opportunity to wear a tie. And by the way, this is our first ever graduation ceremony in our wonderful new facility, the UCSF Nancy Friend Pritzker Psychiatry building. So it's been a long time coming, and I should bother, but I don't want to do it right now, but to name all the people who have gone into making this happen. So, okay, as Vice Chair for Education, on behalf of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, I would like to thank each of and every one of the trainees for all that you have brought to the department during your time here. We appreciate our graduates for their sense of community, their conscience, and their commitment. And we hope that they will keep in touch with us and let us know if they ever need or want our help or support, or just keep us up to date with what's going on in their life. Okay, and now I'd like to introduce Dr. Matt State, who's the chair of our department, and he's Oberndorf Family Distinguished Professor. He's also the president of Langley Porter Psychiatric Hospital and Clinics and the Weil Institute for Neurosciences. Thank you, Dr. State.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you here. For COVID, we're packed house, really extraordinary, and I too want to thank you for the opportunity to put on a tie and pants for this year's graduation. I want to thank you, Descartes, and on behalf of the entire department leadership team, all our faculty and staff, I want to start by congratulating our graduates today. Right after that, congratulating the families and the ones that have helped make this day possible. Yes. And of course, I want to thank our amazing education team for all of their hard work all the time, but particularly the last couple of years have been an extraordinary challenge for all of us. I also want to say a virtual hello to everyone who's watching this on Zoom, and hope that our newfangled IT is working. And so we'll keep our fingers crossed. Bear with us if not. It is a wonderful new building, but there are always wrinkles when you first try it out. And it's wonderful that we get to finally try it out. This is by far the largest event that we've had in this building so far, so it's really wonderful. As you all well know, this group of graduates has been through unprecedented times. Every one of us, I think, in faculty, staff, etc., when try to think about what an adjective is, everyone tries to think of something besides unprecedented. Just ends up saying it's unprecedented. It has been, it was unprecedented. It was sort of one of the things that we had to deal with starting several years ago, COVID, and then one a series of events after another. Just I think elevated this to where I don't think that there's the right word in English. But in the midst of all that, this, I think, is a particularly momentous occasion, and our graduates deserve, and their families deserve, particular thanks because over the time that they have been training, they have not only survived, but they have thrived, and they have allowed our department and the mental health enterprise at UCSF and across all of our sites continue to thrive. It's an extraordinary achievement. We're obviously in the midst of a mental health crisis for those of us in the in the field, this is nothing new. It is now being newly appreciated, I think, across the country, but in part because it's become more acute, considerably more acute over the last couple of years. And in the face of that, and all of the challenges and constant zooming and rearranging everything on the fly, this group has managed to pursue outstanding research, engage in their own and professional development, and assist in training generations through this program. And I think one of the things I'm most grateful for is that the clinical services across all of our sites have continued to grow. We have been serving thousands of more visits annually across all of our sites over the last 2 years, with not only no increase in faculty, staff, or trainees, as you all well know, but in some cases, we've been in a deficit. So that is an extraordinary achievement. As I said, it's one of the things that has been most gratifying about being chair through this period, to watch that happen and to see how well you all serve the communities that we're in, our patients and their families. I also want to offer a similar thanks, and with no less sort of awe and wonder, for the education team that has helped shepherd all of you through your training experiences. Graduation is always it's for me a bit bittersweet. It's wonderful to celebrate the accomplishment, always hard to say goodbye to those that may be leaving. And this year in particular, from the standpoint of our faculty in the education program, it is both wonderful to see people moving on to bigger and better things, but also I think something that we not only want to acknowledge, but I think take a moment to celebrate. So I want to point out that we are losing, I'll put that in quotes again, because we hope, number one, that they'll stay in the family, and two, they're going to continue to contribute to our field in incredibly important ways. But we have 4 major leaders who are leaving. Mike Hofer, who leads the Addiction Psychiatry Fellowship, Craig Nelson, who was a longtime head of our Geriatric Psychiatry Fellowship, extraordinary faculty member, and Dale McNeil, again, just extraordinary leadership of our clinical psychology training program. Want to thank them for their extraordinary service, and know that all of them will continue to make contributions, and I hope stay connected with our department. And as you'll hear in a moment from Dr. Lee, we also have to say adieu, farewell, hopefully not goodbye. I know not goodbye to Dr. Eric Hung as he transitions into the UCSF Dean's office. Eric has been just a remarkable residency training director, an incredibly valuable colleague throughout. I have to say that coming in from outside of this institution 10 years ago, it's incredibly important to have generous, generative, institutionally minded leaders in place to help you. And I can't think of anyone who fits that description more than Dr. Hung. So congratulations on moving to the Dean's office, and we'll look forward to hearing more from you momentarily. I also just have to say in public, thank you to Alyssa Peterson, who has stepped up. Yes. Exactly. It's tough to lose someone like Eric. It definitely breaks the fall when you have an extraordinary faculty member and educator like Alyssa, who has agreed to be our interim training director and will certainly help guide us with an extremely steady hand through the coming year. So I'm just going to end where I started, thanking you all for coming, congratulating all of our graduates, faculty, and staff. A particular thank you to family and friends for helping all of us, and particularly the graduates, get through training in our field. It was never easy, and none of us would be here without that kind of support. Congratulations, welcome, and I turn this back over to Dr. Lee. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. So I'm so pleased to introduce our graduation speaker this year. And I've known Eric for a long time, so I'll try to make this introduction shorter than his speech. That would be good. He's Dr. Eric Hung has been, and I should say is, an outstanding leader of the educational mission for the department and for UCSF. He's demonstrated his outstanding abilities in several leadership roles. Just to make it short, residency training director, as we just mentioned, director of curricular affairs for Office of GME, Graduate Medical Education, and he's also the endowed chair in psychiatry for medical student education. He's received multiple national awards in teaching and education, and I'm pretty certain he's going to go on to many more. So, and I can't highlight enough his fantastic organizational abilities, like dealing with all the little details that go into his roles, while at the same time maintaining a really clear and consistent kind of big picture vision for the educational mission of the department. I'm honored to say that I've known him since his residency training here. I was actually his caseload supervisor when he was a third-year resident. I'll only say that was more than 4 years ago. And as Matt mentioned, as a result of actually a very incredibly competitive national search, he will soon be the Associate Dean of Students for the School of Medicine. So seeing him and also all our many trainees here today and graduates reminds me of everyone's amazing potential. So that's really great. Let me go a little bit what he's going to talk about. And just to mention, there's a lot of pressure to teach in psychiatry and in medical school, many obvious and important topics for us to learn, like psychotherapy, psychopharmacology, interviewing skills. But I actually don't know if we actually always think about what are the proper habits of mind that we should be teaching our future clinicians? What are the most important habits of mind that are necessary for mental health clinicians? And how can we actually effectively support the development of these habits of mind in our trainees? So please join me in welcoming Dr. Eric Hung as the 2022 UCSF Department of Psychiatry Behavioral Sciences graduation speaker, and as he answers these important questions.
It's a tad bit shorter than Descartes. Descartes, thank you so much for those warm words and for that introduction, and also Matt for sharing your sentiments. So my hunch is that when you are asked to be a commencement speaker, that there is definitely a range of emotions that come up for you. And this is my first commencement opportunity. The first reaction is one of feeling honored. It's an honor to be able to share some advice, some wisdom, some tips, some tricks. And when I looked up what goes into a good commencement speech, as a good student might do, wisdom and inspiration are these two guardrails that you have to stay between. And so I was like, okay, I think I can do that. And then after that kind of first reaction of feeling honored, you have a moment of despair. Despair because as you start to do some research on commencement speeches, you start to realize commencement speeches sound awfully similar. And that part is a little bit intimidating. And then in my case, a third reaction, and that was one of, I cannot help but wonder as I'm leaving one education role in a department that I dearly and truly love and will always stay connected to, and going to another education leadership role. I've heard all of the sentiments of, we're so happy for you. We have such mixed feelings about this transition. We're so sad to see you go. And I think what everyone is also really trying to say, but just doesn't have the courage to say it, is we're pretty damn upset that you're leaving. And so we're going to make you be a commencement speaker so that you have to go through this process. And yeah, that feels right. I think it's a little bit of payback. So thank you for this opportunity. And unfortunately, despair and cynicism don't come all that naturally to me. So I feel very honored to be your commencement speaker today. Graduates, congratulations. Today you find yourself in a moment and in a place a really beautiful place where there are many doors lying in front of you. I imagine that for some, there's a door of freedom. You are finally done with training, like done with training forever. And you've worked hard in diving into research questions that are not easy to answer, not sleeping for 30 hours straight while working in the hospital, feeling completely incompetent in learning new skills, having had to swap calls and swap calls and swap calls again in order to take care of us and the system as a whole. Today is your liberation. And for others, there's a door of adventure. There are so many roles to occupy, questions to ask, systems to fix, and patients and clients to heal. For others, I would imagine there's a door of humility. You have just scratched the surface of knowledge, skill, and technique. And I know that as a residency program director, most of what we have taught you is actually incorrect. It's going to be outdated, hopefully in 10 years. And so have the humility to continue learning and really embrace that door of humility as you push yourself and challenge yourself and let go of those old frameworks and theories that actually haven't served our patients well. And I can appreciate that there's also a door of sadness. Many of you have formed incredible bonds with each other as classmates, with our staff, with our faculty. And there's a little bit of sadness for having to cross this threshold and to say goodbye. And I know that for those that don't feel like they're saying goodbye, there's a sadness that you're going to be starting fellowship up in a couple of weeks. So I appreciate that all of these doors are here in front of you. And I just want each of our graduates to take a moment, close your eyes, and just absorb what you have accomplished. And recognize that there have been many people along this path, friends, family, those who have been with us and those who have left us, that have gotten you here today. And take in this moment, thank them, and be proud of yourself. So I shared a couple of emotions that came up for me as I was thinking about being here today, standing in front of you, and being on the Zoom screen with everyone else who is also with us as well. And yes, there was feeling honored, and yes, there were moments of despair, and yes, there was a little bit of cynicism that this is payback. But quite honestly, I think the emotion that feels most central is really one of gratitude and one of privilege. I am really grateful to be here today to be able to share some thoughts with you. I know that there have been many people in this room who have believed in me. There have been many people in this room who have taken risks when I have been in moments of blind spot. And I would not be here today without their support and without their encouragement and without their ability to see me through that process. And I am so grateful for that opportunity and for this opportunity just to share some thoughts today. This moment is also especially meaningful because there's always a little bit of you that feels like an imposter. Now, I was a little bit of the waitlist child. I got off the waitlist for college. I got off the waitlist here at UCSF for medical school. I'm pretty sure that I was lower down on that rank list for residency. And there's always a little bit of imposterism, right, in that. There's imposterism when you first start off as a residency program director. Do I really have the capacity and the heart to do this work? There's a little bit of imposterism when I stepped into helping think through all of our residency and fellowship programs, think through the competencies that are necessary for physicians in the 21st century to really take care of the systems that we need to take care of. And I will admit, as I'm starting to think about really occupying a role of being an associate dean for students, there is definitely a lot of imposterism of like, I don't know if I can do this at times. But that imposterism is definitely counterbalanced with opportunities like this to be able to say like, no, I have some things that I have learned along the way and some things that I'd like to share. And it is a real privilege to be able to do that. So thank you for this privilege of being here. I want to acknowledge a couple of really special people to me, people who have gotten me to where I am. I want to say thank you to my mom. My mom is on the live stream right now. She wanted to be here in person. Hello, Mother. And my mom has been an inspiration to me over my entire lifetime. She was a high school math teacher for over 30 years. She retired. She decided to reinvent herself. She went to nursing school. She is currently a nurse at Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland. She works the night shift. She worked through the pandemic, and she has been a total inspiration and a role model. My mom is also a marathon runner. I'm looking at Sabrina in front of me, who's also a marathon runner. And she's not just a marathon runner, but this year, this upcoming Boston Marathon in April will mark her 37th consecutive Boston Marathon. That definitely needs an involuntary hold if you've ever seen one. And she will break the record this year as the longest woman streaker, as they call them. The woman who's run the most consecutive Boston marathons. And what my mom has taught me over the years is that perseverance and humility and hard work and good timing and spontaneity and adaptiveness, that those are all qualities that apply to marathon running, but honestly, like they apply to the work that we do. They apply to us as humans. And Mom, for that, I am forever grateful for you for those lessons. I am also grateful for my partner who's also on the live stream. He is out there watching, and he has been sort of a rock for me over all of these years to get through a pandemic when the two of us are literally in a very small condo, one in a bedroom, the other in a room literally 4 feet away from each other on video conference calls. Like, we got through the pandemic because our partners didn't leave us and supported us along the way. And Christian, I am thankful for you. And I am also grateful for another amazing person with whom I've crossed paths this year. And that person is Dr. Kamara Phyllis Jones. Many of you are not strangers to Dr. Jones because she has been with our department in many celebrations and conversations over this last year as the UCSF presidential chair. Dr. Jones, for those of you who don't know her, is really a national and international expert and social justice warrior as we think about confronting racism denial, not only in our country, but really within the walls of our institution. And I had the opportunity of crossing paths with Kamara as I pitched an idea to her about joining a podcast series that I had been leading over the course of the last couple of years in leadership, and a podcast series that is really focused on how do we actually develop leadership skills for our trainees and what are some of those common sort of leadership traits. And of course, you can't go looking very far to think that so much of the work that we do is around making sure that people feel included and making sure that they belong, and actually fighting the power hierarchies that get in the way of that. And Dr. Jones said yes to my ask for being in the podcast series and has recorded 4 episodes with us. And just as an aside, I recommend never doing a podcast series or writing a grant for a podcast series, which I thought was going to be fun, and it's a lot of work. We'll be proud when that series is released in a couple of weeks. Dr. Jones said yes to the podcast series, and I want to elevate actually one of the episodes that we recorded about a month ago. And in one of the episodes, Dr. Jones talks about 4 habits of mind. She talks about the 4 BCs, like capital B, capital C. And these habits of mind apply to social justice warriors I would also say that they apply to all of us as leaders, as followers, as trainees, as staff, as faculty. These habits of mind apply in all of the work that we do. And the 4 BCs are: be curious, be courageous, be collective, and build community. Being curious means asking why again, getting down to the root causes of what drives the problems that we see in front of us. It means creating frameworks, finding that roadmap, making sense of the world. Being courageous means don't be afraid to sit in your stretch zone, to lean into your growth edge, to make yourself vulnerable, to speak up for what you believe in, to try something for the first time, to dismantle a system, especially when there are injustices in that system, because some would prefer comfort over change. Be collective. Care about the whole. We are all on our individual paths, and that is wonderful, but one individual path shouldn't trump the other. And we are much more interconnected and interdependent than we think we are. And we can do better as a community when we actually care about that community and care about the whole. And I know that that can be incredibly difficult during highly politically polarized times. But if we care about the whole, we can actually accomplish much more as a group and also much more individually. And then build community. We cannot do this work alone. The work requires the group, and the group protects the work, especially when that work is disruptive or innovative or is challenging the status quo. And so be collective and build community. And so to frame this commencement, I think about these 4 BCs and I want to pay it forward. Kamara paid it forward in the podcast, and I want to pay that forward now. And I think about these 4 BCs and they've really applied, whether that's been in the foreground or in the background, to so much of the work that we've done together as a community over the last couple of years, but really over the last couple of decades. You know, I think about when I started as a residency training director, and we really needed to redesign and reform the residency. The residency was training a particular model of training, and that was wonderful, but we needed to think about the whole. And the 4 BCs guided us as we were thinking about that residency redesign. You know, we asked ourselves, we were curious about how do we actually create leaders in this field, and what do those leaders need to know, and how do we think about this road of professional identity development and really kind of think about that intentionally in the curricular design. We were courageous because we had to make bold steps. It's not easy to say, we're going to change the rotations, and the rotations are like, what? You can't do that. We've always been doing that. You have to be collective. You have to think about what do 21st century physicians need, and how do we actually think about value-based care and population health and collaborative care, and really caring about the population as opposed to just caring about the individual. And I don't mean that to say it's just the individual. Those skills are incredibly important. But if we only focus on going deep with patients, we sometimes find ourselves only having the opportunity to do that with a few, and often with a few that are able to afford it. And so it's important for us to care about the whole. And of course, we build this community in redesigning programs like residencies. We do it together. And we do it by creating near-peer interactions and vertical integration with faculty and with junior learners. And so those 4 BCs guided us in the residency transformation. And I feel really proud of what we have accomplished, and so excited for Alyssa and others to continue to evolve and reshape and disrupt our training program. Of course, these 4 BCs have been with us in the pandemic, right? You know, be curious, like, why do some people have access to testing or to screening or to treatment and others do not? What assumptions do we actually have about in-person versus virtual learning? And can we actually challenge some of those assumptions and not necessarily teach and do what we've always done before? So being curious, you know, being courageous to actually go into the hospital when you were scared to go into the hospital. And I know that for the residents here in the room, like that was incredibly scary, especially during those early months of the pandemic. You were courageous in that we were all courageous in that we had to redesign our mental health systems, literally within the order of 9 or 10 days. And we had to be courageous in that. And we had to be courageous for advocating for things like PPE and those basic necessities that enable us to do the work. So we had to be courageous. In the pandemic, we've also had to be collective. It's easy to withdraw, to care about yourself, to say, I don't need to swap calls with someone. I can just kind of do my thing. I can make it very transactional, click on Zoom. I'm gonna actually multitask. I'm just gonna care about the things that I need. But that's actually some of the things that we have lost. And I think that as we have thought about the collective, it's been really important to realize that, healthcare is inherently a very social process. And it's been really important for us to care about the whole, especially as we think about finding our new set point in equilibrium. And the pandemic, I think, has also taught us how and the importance of building community. We have needed to lean on each other along this path, especially this path over the last 2.5 years. I have leaned on my residents. I've leaned on Matt. I've leaned on Descartes. I've leaned on Sharon. I have leaned on Alyssa. I've leaned on Gigi. We all lean on Gigi. We've leaned on each other in order to get through this. So the 4 BCs have been with us in the pandemic. The 4 BCs have also been with me as I've been thinking about the diversity of our workforce. And in the last couple of years, we've really been blessed in our ability and capacity to be able to recruit the workforce that our patients and families and community deserve, a workforce that better reflects those communities. And those 4 BCs were guiding us through that process. Being curious meant taking a look at all of the structures and assumptions that actually were getting in the way of us creating a diverse workforce, and being courageous to be able to challenge those structures and to actually say, you know what, our thinking of what honors means during this medical school experience and having people weeded out because of that, knowing that certain groups are more likely to be weeded out than others, or standardized testing, knowing that certain groups are more likely to be weeded out by standardized testing, we had to have the courage to say those things have value, but those things aren't the core of actually what we need to do to create the diverse workforce that we have. And we had really redesigned our recruitment process in order to have the success that we have had over the last couple of years, where over half of our classes reflect individuals who are underrepresented in medicine, who are first generation in their families to go to college and to come to this university. And that has taken courage. It has also taken the collective. It has meant leaning into our underrepresented medicine trainees and faculty, and also our overrepresented in medicine allies, to be able to actually be collective and do this work and to have that workforce that we need. And we have been able to do that because we have been needing to build that community. The last I'll say about the 4 BCs is that they've also affected my sense of being a clinician. And as I think about those moments where I have been disruptive in the work that I've done and really felt like I've deepened in my identity as a clinician, those 4 BCs have been there. For some of you, you know that my brother passed away. He struggled with depression and severe substance use disorder issues. And he passed away in that kind of gray zone between accidental overdose and suicide. And that was 4 years ago. And of course, that impacts the work that you do, that changes the way that you teach, that shifts the way that you lead. And I am forever sad for his loss, and also grateful for some of the lessons that he continues to teach me. And one of those lessons was a couple of months ago when a patient of mine died by suicide. And of course, all of those feelings that come up this wasn't the first patient that died of suicide in my care, and it won't be the last, but it was the first after my brother's passing. And that range of emotion that comes up is both powerful and it's also new. And in the months following my patient's death, I found myself in a space of talking to his mother. I was there for the mother, just to answer questions. Some questions couldn't be answered, but to answer some questions. And the mother had a wonderful therapist, actually one of our graduates, a graduate whom I trained. And the conversations that I had with the mother were surprising to me and reflective in many ways of the 4 BCs. For me, it was a curiosity to find myself both partnering and listening to the agony of a mother who loses a son, and also finding that parallel of a brother, who lost another brother. And I had a moment of courage to do something that I have done before, but didn't do in this way, and that was to disclose to the mother that I was there with her. I had lost my brother, and I knew just a piece, perhaps a small one, of what it was like to lose someone that is so close to you. And the courage to kind of cross that boundary. It is a boundary crossing, right? And boundaries are incredibly important, but sometimes those boundary crossings can actually create a space for deeper empathy and a little bit more humanity in the process. And I found myself, as I was thinking about the collective here, we were really 2 people, albeit with power differentials at play and boundaries that needed to be respected. We were nonetheless 2 people kind of walking along a path together. And I remember actually talking to her on a path. I was walking the dogs in this really remote area where I live. And I was talking to her and finding myself in this place of actually walking alongside her as opposed to taking care of her. And in that moment, I realized that there was really that special connection, that connection that Irv Yalom, a psychodynamic group psychotherapist, so poignantly articulates, that we're just fellow travelers along a path with the people that we care for. It's not about the healers in the field. It's about 2 fellow travelers along a common path, reaching a common destination. And that was, I think, a real surprise in some ways for me. And I have, in processing this experience, have leaned into my community. I've leaned into my former residency classmates. I've leaned into my former resident, who's this mother's therapist, and we have grown together, and we've realized that we are interconnected and interdependent. And so, graduates, my advice to you is to embrace these 4 BCs, these habits of mind for social justice warriors. Pass them forward. Pass them forward in the care that you will provide to your patients and clients. Pass them forward in the teaching that you will provide to the next generation of psychologists and psychiatrists. Pass them forward in the systems that you will tear down and rebuild. Pass them forward in the questions that you will ask. Pass them forward in the opportunities when you will lead, and also the opportunities when you will follow. And pass them forward in your support of each other and us as colleagues. Be curious, be courageous, be collective, and build community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. That was great. Fantastic. Okay. Now on to the presentation of this year's graduates. And please note that some of the graduates are participating virtually this year, but we'll announce everyone's names, whether they're in the auditorium today or participating remotely. And so just for the graduates, when I call your name, please come down the side of stairs that are nearest to you. And then when you'll come up here, you'll be with your program director. There'll be an opportunity for a picture and a diploma. And then when you're done, please go up the opposite stairs that you came, just for flow reasons. Okay. So the first program that we'll present is the Adult Psychiatry Residency Training Program. The director is Eric Hung. And this four-year training program's vision is leaders in psychiatry, training pioneers in clinical care, research, education, and public policy. It admits 16 residents per class with rotations across multiple sites, including Langley Porter Psychiatric Hospital and Clinics, Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center, the San Francisco VA Healthcare System, and the UCSF Health System. The program prepares residents to successful careers as leaders in clinical practice, community service, education, and research. Amir Abdelli. Alexander R. Bazazi. Elizabeth B. Bruns. Anthony Daggett. Renee C. Drolet. Melody Y. Hu. Ying C. Lee. Lance Middleton. Julie. Great. Thanks, Lance. Juliet Morgan. Juliet here? Matthew W. Peters. Carrie Ann Pinard. William Billy Smith. Adnan Saeed. Belinda Wong. Shu Yu Wang. Next program is the Addiction Psychiatry Fellowship Program. Director Michael Hofer. Associate Director Tauhid Zaman. This ACGME accredited program provides training in the assessment and treatment of substance use disorders in the addiction treatment programs at the San Francisco VA Medical Center and Kaiser Permanente Medical Center. Eric Alcide. Farhan A. Ladhani. Stephen Liang. Jack Van Bezoyan. All right. Next is the Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Fellowship Program. Director Caitlin Costello. Associate Director Devanan Manoli, Chuanmei Lee, and Ashley Malikan. The aim of this program is to train innovative physicians from diverse backgrounds in a solid foundation of child and adolescent psychiatry, including neurobiology, development, family, social, school systems, research principles, psychopharmacology, and psychotherapeutics over 2 years following completion of an adult residency program. Through their passionate commitment to the field of child and adolescent psychiatry, these physician leaders will help shape the future of behavioral healthcare delivery through their clinical, educational, advocacy, and research efforts. Chase Thaddeus Macio Anderson. Emily Asher. Ragini Bhushan. Ariel Lasky. Veronica B. Searles Quick. Jessica Noel Ming Uno. The next program is the Child and Adolescent Services Multicultural Clinical Training Program. Director Barbara K. Stewart. This program, based at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center, provides instruction in the delivery of culturally responsive mental health services to a community experiencing poverty, toxic stress, trauma, and the impact of racism and other forms of oppression. I know Barbara's out today, but his doctoral interns are Maria Alejandra Arce,
All good vice chairs have to substitute. Haley Cottle. Yvette Cuellar Celeos. Sloan Jade Novo. Jennifer Stockwood. Catherine Diane Whistler. And on to the postgraduate fellows. Maria Blythe. Kelly Eddyburn. And now on to the clinical psychology training program.
The director is Dale McNeil, administrator Ugo Sosa, and Linda Pfeiffer will be presenting the diplomas. Founded in 1943, this program trains scientist practitioners committed to careers involving clinical research. The training programs at Langley Porter Psychiatric Institute and Zuckerberg San Francisco General merged in 1982 to become a 2-year program offering a doctoral internship and postdoctoral fellowship. The doctoral interns are Lee Se Brosef, Carolyn Ponting, Megan K. Ramaya, Rowan Solosner, Aya Inamori Williams, the postdoctoral fellows, Melissa H. Bond, Hannah G. Bosley, Elizabeth Hockey, and Alice Hua. Linda, don't go away. This is the Clifford Atkinson Clinical Services Research Training Program. Director is Linda Pfeiffer. Again, associate directors are Keja Lewin and Rachel Lowy. The NIMH-funded Clifford Atkinson Clinical Services Research Program bridges the gap between dissertation and dissemination and implementation between science and service. For the past 37 years, the CSRTP has launched the careers of clinical services investigators from a variety of disciplines, including psychology, social work, epidemiology, sociology, medicine, health economics, and nursing, who plan to pursue careers in mental health services research. Marian Pugat. Now is the clinical liaison, the consultation liaison psychiatry fellowship program. Director is Q Chang Lee. This 1-year clinical training program is based primarily at the San Francisco VA Medical Center and gives fellows the opportunity to gain expertise in inpatient and outpatient consultation liaison work, acquire advanced teaching and leadership skills, and develop clinical research interests in an academic settings. Fellows may also choose to develop a liaison focus in a specialty area of interest, such as infectious disease, oncology, movement disorders, addiction, geriatrics, or women's health. Kauri G. Aragam. The Forensic Psychiatry Fellowship Program, Director Renee Binder. Eric, will you be the presenter? The fellowship in psychiatry and the law is a one-year program offering advanced training in the field of forensic psychiatry, including the psychiatric evaluation of individuals involved in the legal system, the legal regulation of general psychiatric practice, and specialized psychiatric treatment of forensic populations. After fellows complete the program, they are eligible to take an examination for subspecialty certification in forensic psychiatry. Hua Su Huang. Tian Yi Zhang. The HEAL Fellowship Program in Global Mental Health. Director is Bibhav Acharya. This innovative and rigorous two-year program is offered by UCSF in partnership with the HEAL Initiative. Its goal is to train psychiatrists as leaders in clinical practice, capacity building, health system strengthening, and health services research in low-resource settings in the United States and abroad. Fellows have completed 4 mentored rotations at Navajo Nation in Arizona, as well as in rural Nepal. Tula Krishna Gupta. Kristen D. Wynn. Kristen. Eva Studer. The Postdoctoral Traineeship in Substance Use Disorders Treatment and Services Research, Director Derek D. Satra, Associate Director Janice Y. So. This postdoctoral training program prepares future research scientists for a career developing new insights into the treatment of substance use disorders and increasing the efficacy of treatment services delivery. Monique Tene Kano. Caravella McChristian. The Public Psychiatry Fellowship Program, Director Christina Mangurian. This one-year program based at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center is aimed at training the next generation of public mental health care leaders. These fellows are trained to provide excellent patient-centered care to vulnerable populations with severe mental illness through understanding and evidence-based psychosocial rehabilitation and psychopharmacological treatments, promoting recovery and developing rewarding public/academic partnerships to examine their work. Tiffany E. Arnold. Emily Asher. You. Stacy Collins. Whoops, sorry about that. Sorry about that, Stacy. Stacy Collins. N. Kyle Jameson. Zachary Lanane. Rita E. Morales Wang. The San Francisco VA Healthcare System Advanced Postdoctoral Research Fellowships, Director Brian Borsari. The primary goal of the VA Advanced Postdoctoral Research Fellowship Program is to train postdoctoral fellows in state-of-the-art mental health neuroscience research and advanced clinical training in a particular area of emphasis. Fellows have 2 years of training with a possibility of a third year. Emphasis in addiction. The mentor is Brian Borsari. Catherine Baxley is the graduate. And with an emphasis in schizophrenia, the mentor is Judith Ford. Elam A. Shamshiri. San Francisco VA Healthcare System Clinical Psychology Doctoral Internship Program Director Nicole D. Torrance. Associate Director Jennifer K. Boyd. This one-year internship in clinical psychology at the San Francisco VA Healthcare System is accredited by the American Psychological Association and is a generalist training program emphasizing neuropsychological assessment and evidence-based clinical interventions. Maria Kriza Lacombe. Keisha D. Novak. Joshua Glenn Parmenter. Jennifer Stewart. Kay Mandy Zenda. San Francisco VA Healthcare System Clinical Psychology Postdoctoral Fellowship Program Director Sam Wan, Assistant Director Elizabeth Shoemaker. This one-year postdoctoral fellowship in clinical psychology at the San Francisco VA Healthcare System is accredited by the American Psychological Association and offers specialized training in the areas of evidence-based psychotherapy, HIV/HCV psychology, geropsychology, primary care psychology, PTSD in returning veterans, substance use disorders, psychosocial rehabilitation, rural psychology, trauma, and women's mental health. Madison Brenna Bailey. Anna E. Blanken. Julia Bravin. James Michael Brennan. Alejandra Seja. Megan Felice. Mayra A. Gomez Padua. Krista L. Herbert. Stephanie Randazzo. Alicia P. Suksena. Connor J. Smith. And Aaron D. Stump. San Francisco VA Healthcare System Postdoctoral Clinical Neuropsychology Residency Training Program Director Johannes Rothland. This 2-year clinical training program offers trainees supervised, experiential, and didactic training opportunities at the San Francisco VA Neurology Rehabilitation Medicine TBI program, the San Francisco VA HCC Neuropsychological Assessment Program, and UCSF Epilepsy Center, and UCSF Memory and Aging Center. Jerry Chen. All right, well, that's everyone. Thank you all so much. Congratulations to all the graduates. And I'm supposed to remind you, please join us for a reception up on the 4th floor garden terrace. And I've been told to remind you that the last shuttle from this building to Mission Bay will leave at 1 p.m. So you have plenty of time to enjoy the reception upstairs. Thank you all.